The Atlanta Braves got absolutely embarrassed by the Colorado Rockies today, losing 10-1 in a new contender for rock bottom. Let's talk about it.
This is the Braves Postcast, your instant game reaction for the Atlanta Braves. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into the Braves Postcast, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, where we cover your Atlanta sports teams each and every day. I'm your host, Lindsay Crosby, author of the Braves Today newsletter over at bravestoday.com. You can follow me on social media at Crosby Baseball. You can subscribe to Locked On Braves and Locked On Sports Atlanta on YouTube. Hit the notification bell so you know when we go live to talk about it. Jake Mastriani is at the game. He went to today's game, so I feel especially bad for him because he was there for a 10-1 loss by the Atlanta Braves. And there's a lot to get to, right? We're going to talk about the offense because there was, you won the series. This is the hard part. You won the series. We're going to talk about the offense and what they did. As well as kind of going forward, what things are going to look like, right? But we've got to talk about the pitching here because Grant Holmes takes the loss in this one. And while he was not perfect, obviously, he gave up a couple runs, solo shot, 3 runs, 2 earned, etc. He wasn't the reason Atlanta lost this game, okay? So, first run scores for Colorado off of 2 different Grant Holmes errors, right? It was like a swinging bunt. He overruns it and then throws it away trying to make the play. So 2 errors, runners on third. He comes in to score. So no hits, but a run. And then from that point, when he comes back out for the 7th inning, I want to know in the comments, those of you who are live on YouTube, and I'm surprised how many people are here already, I want to know what you think about Grant Holmes coming back for the 7th inning. Obviously, it wasn't the reason the Braves lost. But in my mind, when I look at this, is he had allowed 1 hit. He had struck out 14. And so they bring him back now that he's already gotten past the top 3 in the order. Ryan McMahon, who had struck out the previous 6 at-bats over the last 2 days, I think it was 6, maybe 7, hits a leadoff home run. That makes it 2-1. Atlanta had just scored in the bottom half of the previous inning to tie the game at 1. Holmes gives it away. He gets a strikeout. He walks Brenton Doyle. Second walk of the game. They pull him. And at that point, Enyel De Los Santos comes in. And this is where it gets off the rails, right? The Atlanta Braves, and I had this here. The Atlanta Braves threw 32 pitches before they got another out. It took 32 pitches to get an out on the Rockies. And I'm trying to figure out, should you have let Grant Holmes finish the inning? Should you have, when they pulled him, he was at 93 pitches. Should you have let him finish the inning, or should you have pulled him at the start of the inning when he was in mid-low 80s on pitch count to give Enyel De Los Santos a clean inning? I'm inclined to think maybe let Grant Holmes go a little bit more. He walked Brenton Doyle. Orlando Arcia was coming up. Feel like he'd handled Arcia pretty well in the game so far. They pulled him. Enyel De Los Santos, while I think he's been good this year, especially given the expectations we had for him, he was not in this one. He does not record an out. He walks 1. He allows 3 hits, 4 runs scored. They have to go to Aaron Bummer. Aaron Bummer does end up being charged with a single hit. But again, it was not. They went to Jose Ruiz, who allowed 2 hits, 3 runs. The whole thing was absolutely miserable here, right? This whole situation was miserable. Colorado scores 6 in the 7th, 3 more in the 8th. And those 3 runs are what scored off of Aaron Bummer's a 50-mile-an-hour triple right up the right field line. Felt like a lot of things went wrong for Atlanta late there. But here's the thing. This loss here The offense was not good. We're going to get to them in a minute. The offense was absolutely not good. But this loss, from a bullpen perspective, as much as we're mad at Brian Snitker for this isn't on Brian Snitker. This is on Alex Anthopoulos. This is on not having a better leverage reliever where you had to throw Iniel De Los Santos into the 7th inning of a tie game. They chose to DFA Scott Blewett after Scott Blewett blew it versus Arizona, an emotional move. They immediately traded him over to the Orioles. Since then, he's been good. He had one bad outing. He's pitched 6 1/3 innings, 4 hits, no walks. He pitched 2 2/3 today. This is just a situation where if you have better arms in the bullpen, this probably doesn't happen. And so, yes, we're all mad at Snit for going to De Los Santos in the 7th inning and then throwing in Jose Ruiz and then not just leaving him in when it was clear the game was over, not just leaving him in to eat the rest of the innings. We ended up having to go to another reliever, in this case, Aaron Bummer, and then later go into a position player to pitch. When, by the way, the Braves were 1 out away from, I think I saw it was the MLB record for strikeouts over consecutive 9-inning games. The pitching was terrible today, right? Grant Holmes was fine. He's not the problem. He's not the reason we lost. I do think he should be charged with more earned runs because, of course, it was his throwing error that allowed a run to score. So he should have been charged with more earned runs. But this is inexcusable, right? If Scott Blewett lost his job last week, was that just last week? When Scott Blewett lost his job for that blow up against Arizona, then you're at the point where somebody needs to lose a job today. Again, I don't think you were correct to DFA Scott Blewett after that start or after that relief outing. But if you're going to do it then, why aren't you going to do it now? Jose Ruiz should probably not be gone. It is abundantly clear why he was available and nobody wanted him because he was not good here. Two walks, 2 hits, 3 runs, 1 strikeout, 3 total outs recorded. Jose Ruiz, that should be a roster spot that you can fill. Iniel De Los Santos is I think good enough to keep around a little bit more, but you can't throw him in the 7th inning of a tie game. You've got to have better leverage options, right? A Pierce Johnson. Dylan Lee pitched 2 straight days. He was down today. But you got to do something there. In just a minute, I want to talk about the offense because the comments here on YouTube seem pretty close to evenly mixed, right? Their relief pitching was bad. The offense was also not very good. Let's talk about that. We'll do that next, right here on the Braves Postcast. Have you ever decided at the last minute to head to a ball game with friends and family? Maybe they surprisingly won the first 2 games and you're like, oh, they might have a chance to sweep today. You're like, I want to be in the stands for that. That's exactly where Game Time comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last minute tickets without the stress of buying tickets. You still have the stress of trying to win the sweep, but you don't have ticket buying stress because Game Time makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app drop the closer you get to first pitch. They've got last minute deals. They show you the view from your seat so you know what to be in for, what the sight lines are. And they have the lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying. Like they are the official ticketing partner of Locked On MLB for a reason. Let's say you wanted to check out the starts this week where the Braves are taking on the Mets and they have the big 3 of Schwellenbach, Strider, and Sale going this week. That's what Game Time is for. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. The Atlanta Braves offense was not good in this 10-1 loss to the Colorado Rockies. And they had a couple opportunities. I did see a question in here in the chat about Ronald Acuna Jr. So he's on first base, and I think the ball's thrown away. He advances to third. He was correct to run to third base. This is the bottom of the sixth, I believe. He was correct to advance. But what happens after that is he slides in ahead of the tag at third, but he overslides the bag. He was never tagged, so he gets up and he starts trying to run towards home to give Austin Riley time to advance to second base. The mistake here was not Ronald choosing to run, right? That was the correct move, right? The mistake here was oversliding the bag. And Ronald did handle it correctly rather than going back to the bag and immediately being tagged out because the fielder's between you and the bag. Instead, start going towards home so that the trailing runner can advance another base. So he did handle that correctly. I do want to kind of make sure I clarify on some of that. Ronald did handle that correctly after the mistake of oversliding the bag in the first place. But as a whole, the Atlanta Braves got 6 hits, all singles, against the Colorado Rockies, a team that came in 13-57. And the issue I have here is the 3 starters the Braves faced this weekend had ERAs entering the game. I'm sorry, like last year's ERAs were 7, 685, and 475. Right? Austin Gomber hasn't been to start this year. He was a 475 last year. The other 2, 7 and 685 this year. The Braves got 5 earned runs in 16 innings off of those pitchers. They struck out 15 times against those pitchers and went 3 for 13 with runners in scoring position against those pitchers. The Braves needed to sweep this series to have the momentum going into New York. You did all of the work to adjust your rotation so that you had Spencer Schwellenbach, you had Chris Sale, and you had Spencer Strider ready for the New York Mets. Changing your rotation is not the reason the Braves lost today, right? The bullpen faltered. The offense was bad. I mean, this Atlanta Braves offense should be getting more than just 6 singles against Colorado. And here's the thing. I see Jason in the chat. You need to get a bat or 2 before the trade deadline. I'm really struggling to figure out where you would put that bat. I mean, maybe left field. That's really the only option you have, unless you bench somebody who's signed to a long-term deal. Michael Harris has been better recently. He goes 1 for 3 in this one, but he has been better recently. All of your big guys, they all get a hit, right? Austin Riley gets a hit. Matt Olson gets a hit. Marcell Ozuna gets a hit. But again, everybody's getting singles. And at a certain point, Jake's talked about it half a dozen times on these postcasts. It doesn't matter how many consecutive singles that you get. They scored 1 run in that inning. Part of that was because Ronald's base running error. But this offense, as structured, only works when you're getting the power production. Atlanta had plenty of hard hit balls today. They got 2 singles out of it. And when you don't hit the hard hit, like when you don't get the extra base hits, when you don't get the home runs, this is a bad offense. It's not just that they struggle. This is a bad offense. And what I'm worried about, and I saw a couple people mention this in here, what I'm worried about is you have a day off tomorrow, and then you have a bunch of games in the division. And outside of 3 against Miami, it's 10 tough games, right? It's the Mets for 7. It's the Phillies for 3. I wrote a newsletter last week about how you could get back above 500 and into the wild card race by the All-Star break. And part of what I said you had to do was win every series. You needed to sweep Colorado. You needed to win every series. And I think either way, we will know at the end of next week, not this week, which is Sunday, not this week, the end of next week, when you faced the Mets twice, when you faced Philly, we will know, is this team going to be a playoff team? Are they going, or do they have the potential to get into the wild card race, right? If, again, 10 games against the Mets and Phillies, but the team that played today, despite all the strikeouts, Colorado's terrible at striking out, despite all of the strikeouts today, the offense we saw today is not good enough to make the postseason. The pitching is. The starting pitching was. The bullpen pitching was not. And so we're going to know in the next 2 weeks. But this is just a situation where the Braves had to win this. They had every opportunity to win, and they refused to take it. And it's frustrating. And I can read in all you guys in the chat. Like, just about everybody's in the same point. It's just frustrating at this point because the talent is there. And at a certain point, they have to perform. And if they don't perform, then that'll be it on the season. And one way or the other, we'll know in 2 weeks. This has been the Braves Postcast for Sunday, June 15th. Again, 10-1 loss to the Colorado Rockies to not get the sweep, the sorely needed sweep. Your last sweep is now again Minnesota back in April. Do us a favor. If you're listening on audio, leave a 5-star review, Apple, Spotify, YouTube Music. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to both Locked On Braves and Locked On Sports Atlanta. Hit the notification bell so you know when we drop the next episode. Hopefully talking about a Braves win, but Jake will have a lot of thoughts on tomorrow's episode of Locked On Braves. Until next time, this has been Braves Postcast.